Welcome back to Entrepreneur Money Stories. Aubrey, thank you so much for being here with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So, Aubrey is our onboarding specialist here at Kickstart Accounting. And Aubrey and I were talking a few weeks ago about some of the issues that we're seeing, especially going into tax season on business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping. Now, this episode isn't to shame anybody or to pass judgment. This is really just to open our eyes as business owners and how can we get better going into 2024. So this is really a episode where we want to share some horror stories, some things that we're seeing, answer some questions that we get quite often, and really just have an open dialogue. So this is going to be a complete conversation between Aubrey and I, and everything as a business owner that you need to know about bookkeeping. So I always like to start with a definition of what we're talking about. So first of all, like, what is bookkeeping, right? Bookkeeping literally is the act of recording all of your bank activity, all of your accounting activity into an accounting system. So here at Kickstart, we use QuickBooks Online for every single one of our clients. QuickBooks is still by far a superior product over Wave, FreshBooks, your point of sale system. So we use QuickBooks Online with every single one of our clients. So bookkeeping is the act of taking all of the historical information and bringing it into the system. It's not an act of just history, though. It gives us the clues about what's happening in our business, about what's working, what's not working, so that we can predict the future, right? So that we can use it to look into the future of our business. So we have to have bookkeeping for taxes. We have to have bookkeeping to be able to know our numbers. We have to have bookkeeping to be able to make good business decisions. So Aubrey, Kelsey, and I all hold discovery calls here at Kickstart Accounting Inc. So in the discovery call process, so this is for somebody who hears about Kickstart, referral, podcast, whatever it might be. They come to Kickstart and say, hey, I just want to explore this, ask some questions. It's an opportunity for us to ask questions about clients' business and then for us to give an overview of what Kickstart is and how we do things. During this discovery call process, what we hear from business owners quite often is, I don't know if I should be doing my bookkeeping. Like, I feel like I should know about it. I should know how to do it before I just give it to somebody else. Some of the other things that we hear is, I'm doing my own bookkeeping and I think that I'm doing a really awesome job. I do my own bookkeeping, but I'm running out of time. So I want to kind of dissect each of those and talk about them in length. So first and foremost, let's talk about the business owner who feels like they need to understand how to do bookkeeping. They need to understand what it is. They really want to get into it before they can hand it over. What would you say to that client who that's the story that they're telling themselves?
I would definitely say, yes, it's great as a business owner to understand your books. That's a little different than understanding how to do bookkeeping, right? And we hear that often, or we hear people that want to start with us and they want us to teach them how to use QuickBooks. I always start off with that by, why? Why are you wanting this thorough knowledge? And what do you want from your numbers? Because I think that's a different question. And sometimes the client's asking that and they just don't know it. I think just prefacing that with, QuickBooks is great. And yeah, it does a lot of automations. Those automations aren't always great.
Oh, the automations set you up for failure. We have seen the automations at their worst. And so I do not believe AI is taking over our job anytime soon.
I think when it tries to, that's when we end up with the messiest books. And sometimes the business owner who thinks they've been doing, and sometimes they do a great job, but who thinks they've been doing a great job and understand it, have no idea that those automations are happening in the background.
Let's touch on that because we just recently had a client who this was their story, and it took us so much time and energy to correct those financial statements. So, briefly, can you just tell us about that client and what they went through in this process?
Absolutely. So, and I think QuickBooks just did like an upgrade. So it probably happened without them even knowing. And we went into their settings and everything was added as an auto add. So not only were all these rules set up automatically, but then anytime she or even us were trying to fix it, it was automatically going back, which causes a lot more cleanup and mess than fixing anything or making their time more efficient, honestly. So we see that a lot. That's the first thing we look for. But I think that's just a reminder of like, you can think you're doing something great and you know what you're doing. And really on the back end, like it's not coming through that way. So we see that often. Yeah.
So this business owner who says, I need to understand QuickBooks, you're not far off in that as a business owner, you need to understand your numbers. You need to understand the deliverable of QuickBooks, like what's coming out of QuickBooks, and then how to use that to manage your business and to maximize your tax strategies. But what you don't need to know as a business owner is how to do the actual bookkeeping. First, I know this kind of sounds a little harsh, but I like to say, like, stay in your lane. I'm not allowed in Canva. That's a really good example, right? Like, my team doesn't allow me in Canva. I didn't even have access until recently because that's not a good use of my time. And I need to be able to stay in my lane. And so, as business owners, you came into business because you are awesome at your craft, your practice, your leadership. Nobody can duplicate who you are. And so, it's really important that you're doing more of that and not trying to do the things like bookkeeping that you're not an expert in. Because in order to be an expert in bookkeeping, which I don't care how small your business is, you need to be an expert in bookkeeping. If that business owner was trying to find their own auto rules, like if they wouldn't have had us to fix that, I mean, God, their tax return would have been so incredibly wrong. If they would have been audited, they would have been in so much trouble. It could have been a real disaster. So, knowing that your responsibility as a business owner is to know the numbers, but it's not to know how to do the bookkeeping.
Yep. And we see it all the time where people will come. The first thing I hear is, I am so self conscious about how messy this is. Those are my favorites, actually. Like the messier, the better. Bring it on. But we'll go through, the year that they have us go through to clean up. And I'm looking at stuff sometimes and I go, hey, if we went back one more year, I bet we could find a ton of tax savings that you didn't file. So we see that a lot too. So I think when you're looking at, is this saving me money doing my own bookkeeping? Not all the time it is. And sometimes it ends up costing you way more in the long run. And that's even without an audit. So I can't imagine the penalties and what comes in play then. So,
When we're trying to save money, it's like, okay, let me do it myself because I'm going to air quote save money. But one, how much time like should you be paying yourself? So how much, if you were seeing a patient, a client, creating your product, your time would be better served. So we're not saving money because you could have been making more money doing a different activity and then leaving the actual money on the table in terms of tax deductions, things being marked as personal expenses that should be business, vice versa. I was just recently at a conference talking to one of the attendees, and she said, well, I invested all of this money into my business. I have taken out loan against my 401k. I have some personal savings I put into the business. She's like, but my numbers don't quite make sense to me. And so we had quickly looked at her QuickBooks, and all of those investments were marked as sales. And so she was about to pay taxes on her own investment into the business. So really understanding how those major decisions in your business, making sure that they're reflected correctly.
yep, we see that a lot too, is over recorded sales inaccurate. And those people have already paid taxes on all that when they didn't have to. So yeah, that's a huge one.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the business owner who is doing their own bookkeeping and they enjoy, I'm going to use like air quote, enjoy processing the transactions because it helps them see every single item that's coming through their business. Let's talk to that business owner. What's the problem with that strategy?
Absolutely. I would say, and we have a lot of clients that come in and they've been doing their own books for so long. And a lot of them have accounting backgrounds or went to school for it. So, yeah, they do understand it a little bit more than your average owner. But I would say we use such a strategic chart of accounts and framework that's really to deliver that analysis. So, we have your bookkeeper going in and processing stuff, and the client as well going in and processing stuff that sometimes will jumble, the end result, making it inaccurate. A lot of the times we'll have people say, they want to dive in deeper to what expenses are in these areas we've put them in. that's totally fine. Ask us to send that information to you. That's what I always set our bookkeepers up for, that success of like, they're here, you're paying for it. So like, let them do that for you. Let them get you those reports you want to see, especially for those thorough owners who want to see every single transaction. But I think it's almost like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, does that meal always end up great with a ton of people adding different things to it? Mostly no. And that's kind of the same thing when it comes to all of the people's hands in the books. And it keeps us away from really knowing your company inside and out, which in return helps us help you. So I think there's a few ways that that can end up messier than actually helping or, yeah, problem solving, I guess.
So, as a business owner, I think it's easy to do the things that we can cross off the list, right? So, I want to spend my time processing the transactions in QuickBooks because it's very tactical. Like, I'm doing something when the transactions say zero, I'm done. I did my job. However, I would argue that as a business owner, that's not your job, right? Like your job actually didn't even start. Your job is to review the numbers, to ask yourself coaching questions, to ask, are the decisions that I'm making aligned with my goals? Does this align with my intention for the year? What decisions do I need to make next? And what are my numbers telling me about that decision? And so if you're always doing the task that you can cross off the list, you're not doing the task of thinking and questioning and the higher level thought. And so I know that that's really difficult. It is one of the biggest transitions from working in your business to on your business is being more thoughtful and walking away to, like take your numbers, look at them, and then go get out of your office, go take a clarity break, go for a walk, go get a coffee, and think about the numbers. That is actually your job as a business owner. So if you're in QuickBooks actually processing the transactions, which you're not trained to do, they might not be going to the right places. And then you could take inaccurate reports and look at them, you're not even going to be making the right decision. Again, I just had somebody ask me recently, that, okay, if about $40,000 in profits, what do I do with those profits before the end of the year, right? Like, should I take a bonus? Should I bonus out my team? And I said, well, in looking at your income statement, I want to ask you first, you have some negatives. Why are they negative, right? You're doing your own bookkeeping. So why are they negative? And I go, well, I have no idea. And I said, okay, well, then you have zero profits to spend because you have no idea if your bookkeeping's even correct or not.
Yep, exactly. And we see that often.
Have you heard yourself saying, I'm scared to invest money in my business because what if it doesn't come back? I don't know how much to pay myself, so I won't take a paycheck yet. I'm reinvesting in the business anyway. Or how about, I'm not going to spend any more money until I know exactly where my money is going. Well, let me tell you, you are not alone. In fact, we have heard all of these stories and more throughout the last 9 years at Kickstart Accounting Inc. And that is why we have created the Money Mindset Mastery Framework to finally unlock and overcome these stories, to finally feel confident in your financial decisions and pay yourself what you deserve. The first step to create a profitable and successful business is to first understand your money mindset. Find out your money mindset personality type by going to kickstartaccountinginc.com/quiz. I can't wait to hear what your money mindset type is. All right, let's touch on the business owner who maybe likes or doesn't like the bookkeeping, but they've been doing their own bookkeeping and they're just starting to get busier, right? Like we're growing, we're in high growth mode. And I think that is more than anything when people ask, who do you work with? At Kickstart, I think that's the number one thing is that we work with people who are in growth mode. They are actively working on their business. They're working in their business. They're growing their business. They have a bigger mission and they're trying to fulfill that mission. So for that business owner who is starting to get busier, they're wearing all of the hats, what is the message to that business owner about doing their own bookkeeping?
It's a really bad use of your time. If that's where you're trying to get, it's definitely time to outsource. And I mean, make sure that when you're looking for that bookkeeper or bookkeeping firm, like you're making sure that they are somebody that's going to serve not only as taking all the administrative burden off of you, but serve as your accountability partner. So, like, what are your goals? Are they aligned with, you and your business as well? And are they doing your bookkeeping with all of that in mind? And I think that's kind of what sets us apart from other firms for sure. But it's also what helps you get to that next step as an owner. So, us taking all of that away from you, making sure we're delivering it to you in a way that aligns with your goals. And we're also pointing out those different areas. Like, here's where you're struggling to meet this specific goal that we've talked about. I think that's the time to definitely make sure you're hiring the right bookkeeper, but also you want to trust that they are also delivering that analysis to you in a meaningful way to help you get to where you want to go as an owner. So,
Yeah, as you get busier and busier, it's really easy to just let the bookkeeping go, like, okay, I'll do it at the end of the year, right? I'll do it before I have to get to tax time instead of doing it throughout the year. So as you get busy, I just want to encourage you. This is the lifeline of your business. The number one reason businesses go under is because they run out of cash. They need to know the numbers so that they can make the right business decisions. I want everybody to run healthy, sustainable, profitable businesses. And this is how you do it. And when we say accountability partner, I want to just define that for people because I think there's a lot of buzz around accountability. Our accountability is that no matter what, we are going to send you your financial statements. You can sign up for one of three packages. It's weekly, monthly, or quarterly. And when we send you your monthly or quarterly financial statements, we include what we call our snapshot. The snapshot is a PDF document that helps you look at your numbers at a high level with some charts and graphs. So it's not taking you into the weeds. It's really easy as a creative to read this snapshot. We've gotten amazing feedback on the snapshot. And no matter what, like you're going to get the snapshot in your inbox. And that is what I mean by accountability partner. You don't have to lift a finger. You're going to get that report. Now, it is your responsibility as a business owner. Like we can't siphon the information to your brain. It is your responsibility as a business owner then to open the email, read the email, respond to us, book the calls because we're also, included in our services as a monthly or quarterly call. So it's your responsibility then to book the call. Some people will get on the call and say, okay, I didn't read the PDF because it's really overwhelming, but I just want to talk to you about it. Great, great. We'll walk you through the numbers together and instead. So just knowing what accountability looks like, I think is really important.
yeah. And I think even just getting that snapshot and not just the Excel spreadsheets helps so much when you are that busy as the owner. You don't have time to cycle through all of the Excel spreadsheets and figure out what your numbers are. So we kind of do all of that for you.
Just so you all know, I get a snapshot for Kickstart as well. So I love it because it's something that I can even like just read on my phone and like I don't have to sit there and make it sophisticated or advanced or official. Like wherever I am, it doesn't matter how busy I am. I can take out my phone and read the snapshot right there and get that high level overview of my numbers and continue on in my tasks of leading the business. So, yes, I get the snapshot just like every single one of our clients. It's the exact same
So
snapshot.
you don't sit down and do your own bookkeeping every time.
I do not. I do not.
That's funny. We actually just got a new client who does bookkeeping for some of her clients, asking us to do. I mean, so we see that often too. Like, I don't think it's unhealthy to have somebody else's eyes on your books to make sure they're accurate. It's just like when you're writing up something and you've looked at it so long, it's the same thing. You aren't seeing the mistakes, you aren't seeing the errors, you've looked at it way too much. So I think that also comes into play.
The shoemaker's kids don't have shoes. I would do our books last. And so it would be later in the month whenever I felt like it. It would be sporadic and without that system. And so I think it's really important as business owners that you get out of your own way. Like there was a time in the business where I literally had to say to myself, you need to get out of the way of your business and let people support you. We don't have to be superhuman doing all of the strategies. When I worked in corporate, my CEO was not doing the bookkeeping. He was not running the marketing ad, right? As you grow, you get a team to support you so that you can really lead your business and lead your team. And I know there's so many of us where it's like, I'm a practitioner, like I am not a CEO. And that's a whole mindset story that we need to work through because you are all business owners. If you are accepting payments from customers, if you are hiring contractors and employees, if you are filing taxes as a business, You are the CEO of your business. And so we want to arm you with that information. Aubrey, any other stories that you can think of clients that we've worked with that doing their own bookkeeping that we want to leave the audience with? So it's a horror story post Halloween season.
Yeah, I actually lately we've had a lot of people come year end who one filed a return last year after they did their books and were shocked. And they looked at me saying, this CPA didn't tell me anything throughout the year. And that's one thing where like a CPA's mind and a bookkeeper's mind, very different. But also they needed that more level of support and were so nervous also to show their books to anyone. So I think that trusting who you're giving that to is really important. But we've turned those around so often. And when we deliver that first, like, all right, here's what you look like now, here's everything accurate in front of you. Let's meet, let's talk about it. The biggest thing I hear is, I wish I would have done this in the beginning. Like a lot of people say, I need an accountant, I need a CPA, but like nobody's telling them, no, you need a bookkeeper. You need everything to be accurate and you need to know what that's telling you as a business, especially starting out. So that's the biggest thing I've heard lately is, oh, I just wish I would have done this in the beginning.
Again, I didn't realize how many terms there were for all these positions before I started this business. So your CPA, also known as your tax accountant, their responsibility is to file your tax return. And that's literally it, right? Unless you are talking to a firm who has specialized in business coaching and consulting, right? Like, unless they are very specifically working in other areas, their number one responsibility, their only responsibility is to file your tax return. Not all bookkeepers are created equal either. A bookkeeper's position is to record the transactions in the accounting system. And that way you have the foundation created in order to be able to do everything else. The CPA, the tax account, really shouldn't be filing your taxes without the bookkeeping complete. So you really need both roles. Where we sit is somewhere in between because we're doing the bookkeeping, but we're also helping you use the numbers to manage your business. Yes, you can use the numbers to file your tax return at the end of the year. Those numbers are ready, they're accurate, they're clear. However, in my opinion, more importantly, is that you have those numbers before tax time so that you can minimize your tax liability. Like, hello, people, dollars on the table. If you don't know your numbers, end of year time period, you are leaving money on the table by not being able to see what you have and how to lower your tax liabilities. So we're in between that. We're helping you manage, but I just wanted to clarify kind of that difference between a CPA and a bookkeeper. That's why I call it your money team, because you really need a full money team.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say another thing that we've heard lately, this is my favorite phrase one of our new clients said, is before she came to us, she felt like her business and bookkeeping, I think is what she meant, was a pumpkin. And now she feels like she has this beautiful carriage and it's taking her off into all of her dreams. That she can now like determine where her business is going and how to get there based on the information we gave her. That was my favorite. That was a very, oh my gosh, we did it moment, we see a lot of that, or we'll see people that are so nervous to look at their numbers, especially now because it's getting towards the end of the year, and they come to me and say, I just don't know how I'm doing. So think that they're not profitable at all, are nervous to pay themselves, are saving way too much money on taxes. And we turn around with the first deliverable they've ever seen, and it is like a shock. Like, no, you're actually doing really well. And just them not knowing that, like, how are they making those decisions? They haven't been able to. So we've seen that a lot this year.
It's a report card effect. So
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but for me, when we got our report cards, I dreaded it because, like, not only would I see I'm not doing well, but then I'd go home and my parents would like ground, like, okay, thanks, guys. Like, that's what I need is for you to like kick me while I'm down. Now I'm on top of it. Can't go outside to play because I'm grounded because I didn't do well. And so now, as business owners, we don't compartmentalize and we take all of those stories with us. So you go to look at your numbers and you're like, well, did I pass or fail? And if I didn't, right, like you might have lost money. And so now instead of being, okay, I have a lesson to learn, I can ask myself what's working, what's not working. It's tied up in your self worth. Like, I knew I should have never started this business. I'm not good enough. see, you can't be CEO, right? Like it becomes a story that we're telling ourselves about looking at the numbers. More often than not, though, we see that clients think they're doing worse than they are. So when they look at the numbers, it's like, oh my God, hold on. I'm going to have to pay taxes. I'm profitable. This is great. And it totally changes your mindset because now once you have that positive mindset, you're like, okay, well, now going into next year, I got this. Like my business is doing better than I ever thought. So we tend to tell ourselves those negative stories. So how do we get out of our own way? Let the numbers tell the story and then use that story to drive our momentum forward.
Absolutely.
All right, Aubrey, this has been absolutely awesome. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective in onboarding. So, for anybody who is sitting on their fence or you're doing your own bookkeeping, just want to encourage you get started with a bookkeeping firm before year end. It gets so busy come January, February, March time. So start taking action now, even if you plan on getting started in January. Now is the right time. So go to kickstartaccountinginc.com. Right there, you can book a call or sign up for services right away. You will talk to Aubrey during onboarding and she will walk you through this process. So if you're scared, if you're telling yourself a bunch of negative stories, I promise you, we are not judging you. We will answer all of your questions. I call this like the big mama bear hug approach to bookkeeping and accounting.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you. And if you have any other questions, send us a DM on Instagram at Kickstart Accounting. But if you enjoyed today's episode, I asked for you to do one thing in return. I would love if you could like and subscribe and share this podcast episode with one other person who can use this information. I am looking forward to our podcast next week. We'll see you there.